When do the A's need the, you know, the when do the A's need to prove that they can finance this thing?
So
What's going on?
yeah, so if if I can we can compare this to where the Raiders were with Allegiant Stadium. So um, let's see, actually, well, the Raiders had their money early, but when the money actually had to start getting put up, so the Raiders had to put money up for there were still like some agreements that were like being worked out, but uh, the stadium authority approved them to begin what's called early work. So things like site prep that doesn't have anything to do with um, uh, I don't know, grading the land, that kind of thing, and getting stuff ready. But that means like putting money. It's part of putting that first $100 million into the stadium is what the Raiders had to do up front when so that was like their break ground date. I can't remember exactly, but
They
basically
broke
the
ground
A's,
like 17 months after they had made the declaration, I think.
right, yeah,
Something like that. Like
yeah, and
the
so
A's are like 15 months in, so it's like they're
right,
not on the same. Yeah,
and so
it's
looking at like some of the project documents from the Raiders and looking at whatever project documents exist or the timelines that the A's have put out, it's still I think April 2025 is still like is sort of the drop dead, like, hey, put up money, like you need to start putting up money to like start grading the land and stuff if you think you're going to open the stadium by 2028. um you
well,
know
I thought it was
yeah.
so I read through SB1 and it's like section 35 there, I think. I think it says
Mhm.
there's like 18 months after SB1 is signed, they have to have the stadium authority's authority to authorize a deal expires unless they have a development agreement assigned in 18 months. Is that right? And if it's at
so
June 2023, doesn't that put it at December 2024? Like,
so there's my lawyer brain did some looking at this, and so what that section actually calls for is the that authority ends if the stadium authority makes a finding of it's been 18 months and we don't have a deal. And so the way that I have read that
Hmm.
is that there's no legal time limit as long as the stadium authority wants to continue negotiating or wants to continue waiting. um, they can continue to do it as long as they've met. There are other goals that are set to they have to have approved things by a certain date. But as far as all that stuff, I think that is complete. So that's things like MLB's approved relocation and the A's have indicated they want to move. So, those very simple things. But when it comes to like we're ending our authority to negotiate this agreement. um the stadium authority has to affirmatively do that, at least on my reading. I think the
Yeah.
folks at schools over stadiums think a little bit differently on this, and so I think it's fine for reasonable minds to differ. But I think the broadest reading is that the stadium authority has to make a finding, and there's nothing that obliges the stadium authority to make that finding.
because I thought it was interesting that Steve Hill said that they're not going to meet. They're going to meet in August, but we're not going to be expecting much meat on the bone for the development agreement. And then they'll come back September, October. But then he also said something that under a certain time frame, they're going to have two early meetings in December, December 5th and December 12th. So that kind of put like my spidey sense, like kind of just, if I was reading it as December 15th, it just kind of seems like maybe they're going to try to sneak something under the door like they did with SB1 with the special session last year. Like, I guess that's where I got a little skeptical. It just seems to me that maybe they're going to be pushing up and maybe introducing some stuff right before this, 10 days before a deadline. So I mean, I've been reading it this whole time as December 15th, but I would trust you on this.
Yeah, I mean, the
Yeah.
stadium authority, I mean, I haven't asked them directly, but the stadium authority might think that their deadline is December of this year, as far as getting all of the agreements done.
Because
And
they mentioned December a few times throughout the meeting, so it seemed like, yeah.
yeah, and I think it was, it is interesting because I think, yeah, you said, what was it, August, and so they are meeting in August. I think were they canceling the
Well, I
September?
think he said depending,
Yeah,
and
they were.
basically it sounds like how much progress the A's they're going to schedule September, October, depending on where they're at in August. I think kind of.
Yeah, and so and that can change and what for. And so it was, it's. I think that my takeaway from the meeting essentially is that I haven't heard much in the way of public progress as far as what's going on there. Sandy Dean basically just repeated where the A's were like last year, except they have they kind of know where the stadium's going to be now. But otherwise, it's no funding secured. yet. They say they have, lots of interest from people interested in getting into the debt side of things, but um, I think a lot of that is going to depend on whether they actually have, equity investors, because they're not going to put up the money unless they know that the money is there for the whole project, and that's kind of where everybody is at this point. It's who's going to put up this money, and we heard that line again that the Fisher family could or can put up all the equity themselves, but it's very different from would or is willing to do any of those things.
Yeah, because I think the Fishers have like over 10 bill. Like I was reading some article from 10 years ago, and they had like an estimated the Fisher family who had like an estimated over $9 billion. So I'm assuming that's only appreciated over the past 10 years. So I think they do have the money, but yeah, it's like the ability and the willingness are two different things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how it all plays out, and I guess I might go back and read that language again about the whole December 15th thing, because I've been under the impression that that's like the first hard deadline, but it sounds like maybe that's a moving goalpost kind of thing. So
Yeah.
yeah,
It could just be one of those things
You,
where everybody has assumed a thing in December, and then it's like, oh, I don't
you
think.
gotta have like somebody who wants to enforce a deadline for a deadline to be,
that's true.
and
Yeah,
that's it's like sort of all it's like it's just one of the frustrating things about this all, and the frustration that I was feeling when you were talking about the taxes that they're probably not going to assess, even though they should probably be assessing it. It's just like all this government capture is so strong, right? That like all the people who are over, the oversight are people who just want to make sure that this thing happens sort of no matter what. So you just watch these jerks,
yeah,
keep jerking them around, and there's
right.
nothing you can do about it.